All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the MCU Aftershow. This is available on Creative Mind Podcast and the Zim video. So you may be watching it or listening to it on either one of those platforms. And if you prefer to do the opposite, in the links in the description of each one is the link to the other. And the only place to comment on the show is to go to the YouTube. So if you're listening to it, find the link, go over to YouTube, comment if you have any comments. Thank you very much for being here. The last show, last week's show was the most viewed and listened to yet so far. So pretty awesome, pretty stoked on that. Trying to grow this idea as well. I know the MCU and movies and this kind of thing is, completely saturated in, the internet. So if I'll ever break through to get a substantial audience out of it, I don't know, but I love it. I would love to be able to talk more about this stuff because I'm such a nerd for the MCU. It's probably clearly my favorite. Like my dad's thing in terms of like media consumption was Star Trek, right? That he watched that. He probably could do a show on Star Trek really if he wanted to because he watched the original episode so many times. I grew up like every time it was on in reruns and syndication, it was on. I've watched the original episode, each episode probably like 50 times just because we've watched it so many times. But anyway, so I'm the super huge fan of the MCU, trying to get more knowledgeable about all of it. I've watched everything that they've put out as far as the MCU is concerned. I listened to a bunch of other pundits talk about it, New Rock Stars, John Campea, Comic Books Explained, Pop Culture. It's not Pop Culture Explained anymore, but the Rob Core. I can't remember. He renamed Pop Culture Explained to something else. But so those are places where I get a lot of info from on the internet. Those are the ones that I like the best right now. So thanks a lot for hanging out. Let's get into this. Please subscribe to wherever you're listening. If you got a subscription on your podcast or definitely on YouTube, trying to grow the YouTube for sure. So do that thing. Thanks for the support. We got the Patreon too as well. Patreon.com/thezim if you want to support even more. All right, let's get into this. Before we get into the whole world is watching the latest episode of the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What is it? What are we on? We're on episode 4. Before we get into that part of it, let's talk a little bit about some other news in the greater MCU. I wrote down 3 things. First thing I just wrote down was, so we know Sam Raimi is directing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And I'm curious if you guys think he'll make it. He'll make it through. Sam Raimi clearly has a very particular style of movie making. Are you a fan of the original Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire? The first first 3 that he directed with Tobey Maguire. Like, I like them, but I don't love them. I don't love them nearly as much as some people love them. Some people put Spider-Man 2 as one of the best comic book movies of all time. So I don't put it on that level. I'm not a big fan of the zany style of kind of that. So like there's Taika Waititi, who directed Thor and is directing Ragnarok, and directing Thor Love and Thunder, and he has a very particular style too, but it's edgy. It's like zany but edgy, whereas Sam Raimi's zany is zany and goofy, which I'm not a big fan of. And I'm wondering if his version of storytelling he'll be able to complete his vision for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because we've had a couple directors, at least one that I remember, not make it all the way through, where Edgar Wright was supposed to direct the first Ant-Man, which I would have loved to have seen because I love Edgar Wright's version of comedy and version of storytelling, but we didn't get to see that version of Ant-Man. I'm sure they took some of the things, like I feel like I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy that it's Michael Pena, right? Michael Pena, though he when he does those breakdowns of like what happened and he's talking through and they have the other people lip sync his talking, those are great. And I feel like that was an Edgar Wright thing. I feel like they said, okay, we're going to keep that in here. But anyways, So just my thought. I'm really curious if Sam Raimi's gonna make it all the way through, or if they're gonna have artistic differences, and we're not gonna see a Sam Raimi version of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But only time will tell. So we'll check that out when it happens. And then the other two more things about the greater MCU I have on my list is, so Black Widow we know is going to be released on Disney Plus and theaters simultaneously, like at the same time, for a premium on Disney Plus, which I am super thankful for, and I hope it, because the reason I'm bringing this up is I hope it actually happens for a couple of reasons. With this Godzilla, when Godzilla versus Kong came out, and it did better than people kind of expected in the box office. So it's making, according to like John Campea, it's potentially making studios rethink like some of these releases that they were going to put out on streaming, and maybe say, no, we're just going to do theater only. And my thing is like, until you don't have to wear a mask in a theater, that's when I'll go back to the theaters. I don't want to play this like social distancing, wear a mask game inside of a place you're sitting for 2.5 hours, breathing the air of everyone around you. That's just not exciting to me. I don't want to do that. So until that happens, I'll go back to the theaters. And then the layer on top of that, I really think this simultaneous releases is actually the future. I think maybe, a couple more years will go by. If the pandemic ends, they might go back to releasing only in theaters for a while. But I just see, I cannot not see the future of the theater and movie making experience being these simultaneous releases, because I think people are going to want it. I think people, now that they got a taste of it a little bit, more people are going to want to be like, let's just play it at home where I bought this freaking 70-inch TV that's in my living room. I have a kick-ass sound. I mean, I don't know. I guess there is that communal experience, but really the amount of people that really want the community experience of watching a movie in a movie theater, which I love it. I love being there with opening day. Like the first time I experienced that kind of idea was when Jurassic Park opened, and I went and saw it early. Was it Jurassic Park? Well, Jurassic Park was kind of one of them, but then also when the re-releases of Star Wars happened. So there was a couple experiences, but I didn't really, when I grew up, we never went to opening day. I didn't even think that was a thing. I always thought going to the movies meant there was like 10 people in the audience, because that's when we saw the movies. I just thought that's what it meant. I didn't realize that movies actually had like sold out audiences until I got older. And I was like, oh, people actually are into this. And then when like the Star Wars ones was really where people were dressing up as Star Wars. And then like I went in there and like they were interacting with the movie. It was like a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of event. So I do love that theater experience. However, I just don't see it as a sustainable thing anymore. The technology we have to watch things at home, the quality of like things that are on HBO Max and Netflix and all those other places, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, the quality, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is cinematic quality in my opinion. Like you could watch it in a theater, or you could it's just that good that people are going to be like, why do I need to go to the theater to see theater quality stuff anymore? The cinematic quality stuff anymore. I just don't see. So I could see like in the next 5 years at most, or I could see in the next 5 years, a major decline in theater and the theaters becoming a different thing. Like I could see, a new release coming out and being in the theater for like 2 weeks, and that's it. And then it's like, with a simultaneous release of, so the people that want to see it in the theater, well, because 90% of the money that the theaters make off of, and the movies make off of their theatrical run tends to happen at the very beginning, the first weekend, maybe 2 weeks at most, and then just a major fall off happens. So it's like, why not just have it released the opening weekend, 2 weekends, and the people that want to see it in the theater will go see it in the theater, and then everybody else just watch it at home on premium. They pay $30. I'll pay $30. I mean, if I'm taking my kids to the theaters anyway, it's going to cost me way more than $30 to watch a movie. So I'll pay $30 to watch the new release on one of the streaming services. I will do that. I'm totally okay with that. All right, so that's just the thing. The bottom line there is I hope they don't decide to roll back that decision to release Black Widow on Disney Plus. So we'll just have to wait and see there. It's a couple more months away. But I'm actually planning to buy a new TV because Black Widow is coming out. So, which I should be doing shortly, but I just haven't pulled the trigger. I don't know which model to get. I want to get like 40 inches or so. Not super crazy. I live in an apartment, so I don't. But I want it to be decently sized. But I want a good brand. I think I'm gonna go with Samsung because I was looking at like the store brand. Anyways, that's another story. But so that's my plan there. Last thing is another Loki trailer dropped, which was amazing. I'm totally stoked for this Loki show that's coming up on Disney Plus. So like, can't wait for that to come out. The Time Variance Authority and what is it? Luke Wilson? Is that the one? Owen Wilson? Is it Owen Wilson? One of the Wilsons are in there. And like, oh man, it just looks so good. I'm really excited about it. This is all just a hype train for that idea for Loki. So let's get on to this. What we're here for today is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 4. It's the whole world is watching. And right off the top, well, I got two things right off the top. I'm going to say this one first. The Dora Milaje stole this show, stole this episode in my, like, so badass. So badass. The Dora Milaje. Oh my God. So amazing. I'm loving it. I'm loving what's going on with the Dora Milaje. I'm like that, and that scene with John Walker where they had the whole fight sequence. And John Walker's like, they weren't even super soldiers. It's like, yeah, that's what's up, you know. It's like, so okay, so they stole the show in my opinion. There's one other idea, like an overarching. So the way I do this show is I basically just go down through each character, and I'm kind of doing that more and more as the show goes on. I'm discovering like everything kind of comes out as I talk about each character, that prominent character within each episode. So, but every once in a while, there are some themes that don't attach to a character. And so I want to mention them. And this is the one thing that I want to mention out of this episode was like, if you're not noticing, and I know a lot of shows have this, and maybe because I'm so into this, it's more noticeable to me. But if you're not noticing the layers, the themes that they're presenting in this show that are so relevant and so poignant to our society right now, you're not paying attention. If you think this is just an action show, you are not paying attention. I mean, the sequence, and we'll talk about it maybe more when it comes up, but the Sarah will when the basically this whole show, like the point of the greater point of this particular episode could be summed up in the sequence between the conversation between Carly Morgenthau, what is it? Carly, somewhere here, I could see it. Carly Morgenthau. The conversation between her and Sarah Wilson, they had that phone conversation about, radicalization, depending, like, you're only a terrorist if you're, depending on what side you're viewing it on, and like what happened with the Capitol riots in the United States. And it's like, there are a lot of radicalized people in our own country that can't see that they're making bad decisions. And then like the Sarah Wilson line where she was like, this country doesn't care about me anyway, talking about racism, talking about systematic racism and oppression. Like, if you are not seeing these themes, you're not paying attention, or you're just not willing to see it. You're only going to see the action. You're like, I don't want to be challenged at all with who I am as a person. So I just can't, it's like and these themes have been running constantly through this show, which makes it, in my opinion, which is what makes this show so good. Cause it's not just an action Marvel superhero show at all. It's got depth. It's got serious depth. And like, also like, we'll start with, okay, let's just jump into the character breakdowns or each character. So I go to IMDb and I just go down the list. And the first one on the list is Falcon. So this concept of like therapy in a way, like him, when he goes to talk to Carly, alone, one-on-one, and this idea of like, this kind of therapeutic idea is like, it's like that contradiction, not contradiction, but dichotomy between like how John Walker wants to approach the situation versus how Falcon wants to approach the situation, and how what if what if we applied this kind of like thought process to more of what we do on a daily basis, like maybe talking to somebody and understanding them is more beneficial and important to getting through than just trying the quick fix of like, no, like I have an opinion and I'm going to go take care of it right now. It's like I'm trying to understand where somebody's coming from and getting through them. Like such an amazing concept and idea that like if we brought to more of what we're doing in our society could be a much better place in my opinion. But like, so like that layer of this kind of thought of mental health and therapy that has been running through this entire show, but was brought up again with Falcon and him because being like a person that worked with veterans, as we saw in Captain America Winter Soldier, we saw him. That's where we were introduced to Falcon. This is what he was doing. He was talking to people and helping them through difficult times in their life. And man, it's a powerful kind of thought and idea. Moving on to Bucky, what's going on with Bucky? Like I love they still allowing the Winter Soldier to exist. It's like, sure, Bucky has, they describe that he's kind of broken free from the mind control of the Winter Soldier, but he's still in there. He's still crazy. He's still willing to kind of push his boundaries, like that sequence with Zemo where he like throws the teacup across the room or whatever it was. They didn't show what he threw, but like, and he's like, and Zemo's like, oh my gosh, is he gonna snap? Is he gonna kill me right here or something like that? But allowing the Winter Soldier to be the Winter Soldier, I think is a good idea, and I like it. So I'm glad for that. We got, of course, the big. Now I should probably say this at the end, but it's on the list I have. It is John Walker, so I can't call him Captain America, and I don't think anybody can. I don't think anybody should call him Captain America, but I'll just call him John Walker. And obviously he snapped, but the question that's left for what's going on with him at this moment is, how did he get this? Like, is this new version of the serum just like you can just drink it, or do you need to infuse it somehow? Do you need, like, he obviously took it, and when did he have time to take it based on this how this show played out? Like, now he's like this new super soldier that's out of his mind. I thought what was going to happen was they were going to take the shield now in this episode because we know in the previews somehow Bucky and Sam get the shield and they're messing around with it. So I thought they were going to take it in this episode, but now that the episode's over, I'm thinking that now that John Walker has been exposed, maybe the government will say like, we're taking the shield back from you. You're no longer Captain America, which means like, what does he become? Because he still exists. Or there's all these theories like, who's the general from the first Hulk movie that showed up, Thunderbolt Ross. They have theories like he's behind some of this somehow, and maybe like he'll decide like, okay, you're part of my team now. You're a super soldier. I want you a part of my team. I think Thunderbolt Ross I think he's going to become the Red Hulk eventually. So he's been messing around with, the super soldier serum because he still has the Abomination, is that the name of the guy, in his back pocket. Like, that guy still exists. He was probably on that big prison that was in the middle of the ocean, like, where are these characters? So where are we? So what's going on with John Walker is does the government, now that he's been exposed, decide we're going to take the shield back, and do they actually just give it to Sam? Does Sam get a second chance? And it's not that he had to steal it. It's like he just gets a second. They're like, okay, Sam, we're going to give you this shield. Go practice. I don't know. Like, here it is. Go practice how to use it and whatever. So we'll see where that develops. Carly, we already talked about Carly, but in my opinion, obviously they're trying to make us sympathize with her a little bit in a way. I feel like they want us to sympathize with this idea, But in the long run, I just feel like she's delusional. Obviously, she's willing to kill people for her cause, which is like basically the conversation they had with Sam and her was just proof of what the reality is. You know, she's not able to think rationally. She's got what her agenda, she's upset, she's angry, she's a super soldier. There's just lots of things going against her ability to use like her ideas for a good cause. And so she's kind of over the edge now. Like I don't think there's any coming back for her, but we'll see where it develops. There's going to be an interesting team ups eventually. Like it's like they haven't been presenting this like who you expect things to team up. Like I thought in the original previews, like I mentioned before, that you know Zemo was ahead of like the Flag Smashers in a sense, but he's kind of like this anti-hero in this show more than anything in a way, and so there's like these really weird team ups happening, and we'll see how these team ups end up developing. And then we already talked about Sarah Wilson, but that's basically all I wanted to say. Was I think her, even though her kind of moment was small in the show, I think, you know, the actress that's playing her is really, really good. Plus, like, she didn't have a lot to say, but what she has to say was like super, I wrote poignant down. Like, it's like, if you're not catching what they're dropping, then you're missing it. You are totally missing it. But Zemo, I skipped Zemo, was the next on my list actually. And so can we just pause for a moment and recognize Daniel Bruhl? Oh my God. Amazing actor. So like I fell in love with him as an actor in the movie Rush. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend watching this movie Rush. It's a movie about race car driving. He played Nicky Lauder. And I think he stole that movie. Like he was the best part of that movie. So I've been a fan of this actor for a while, and I think he's playing Zemo better in this series than he did in the Captain America Winter Soldier. Like he was kind of like, they didn't give him much personality at all. Like they're giving him so much more personality to kind of like this kind of like Baron idea. Like you didn't even know he was a Baron in the, like that. There's just so much more depth to his character in this than, and obviously they get more time to spend with them, and we're getting to know him better, which is bravo to Disney and Marvel for recognizing that character development is what makes a story good. If you rely on action, it's going to be boring. It's going to be fun for a moment, but it's not going to last. But the fact that they're developing these characters so in depth, man, that's what's making this so good. And Zemo is a testament to that idea. Like they're really giving him some character. They're developing it. Like where it's really, you don't know where he is, what's he decided. Like he's obviously crazy. He obviously hates super soldiers. Like there's no question. Like because every chance he gets, he wants to shoot him and crush him and destroy him. There's no hesitation whatsoever. Like the when he had that conversation with Sam about would you take the serum? Like no hesitation. That's him. His moral code, his moral compass is locked in. He knows exactly what it is that he wants to accomplish. He wants 0 heroes, 0 super soldiers, and that's all he cares about. And then they're giving him this kind of quirky, eccentric, rich person kind of layering on top of that. So it just, and then also not only that, but like not Western, like a non-Western person as well, understanding different cultures and stuff. So very great character, like, oh, so good. And Daniel Bruhl is playing him so well. Like that whole, like that moment of, I love the moment with Sam, Bucky, and him where they were arguing for a minute, and Sam was like, don't get him started or he'll do that, annoying head tilt thing. And then he untilted his head, where it's funny how Sam is pointing out everybody's, like, it's like more proof that Sam understands people. Like going back to what I was talking about earlier with him wanting to talk to Carly, like he understands people's nuances, and he pointed out with Bucky, like the whole staring thing, and then he's pointing out with Zemo the head tilt thing. Like he's watching people, he understands people, so it's like giving Falcon and giving Sam even more depth to his character. Like this person, he's not a super soldier, but he understands people. He gets it, you know? So I think, oh man, the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like even discovering these things myself, because I didn't even know that idea until I just mentioned it now. But it's so awesome. So the last person on my list for today to talk about is Sharon Carter. And until I'm proven otherwise, until it's obvious, I'm in team she is the power broker. You're not going to convince me she's not the power broker until it's clear and obvious. Because, I mean, how many times have we seen before in so many shows, but even in the MCU probably, I can't think of an example, but, you know, even though she's saying they're referencing, so up till this moment, the gender of the power broker is male. The power broker has been male, like they are always mentioning male. This is a male person. So it's like this, they're tricking us into believing something, and she's even double downing on that. He went crazy, you know, it's like, you know, he's upset, you know, but that's just could be because who do we know that knows who the power broker actually is? We don't know anybody. So right now it's just a myth that they have assigned this gender of male to, and so she could just be fueling that myth to protect herself from it. So I am still on she is the power broker. I mean, I haven't seen anything on the internet that proves me otherwise. Like nobody says we've actually seen the script and we know that she's not the power broker. So and just the way they're playing it right now, I just feel like Sharon Carter is still the power broker. And should we give one last, I mean, the best sequence. So this series was, this episode was clearly more action, much more action throughout the entire show, which makes me hope that next episode, I don't know how many episodes there are. We're in 4. I hope they tone it down again next episode so that then they build it back up. They do this kind of like peak and then tone it down. I don't know how many episodes there's supposed to be in this show, but, or this series. So we'll find out. But, I just want to give another shout out to the Dora Milaje, because that whole fight sequence was epic and so good, and they were kicking ass, and it was like, that is what's up. Oh my God, that was so awesome. That was such a good sequence. And it's just the comedy they were able to throw in there with Sam and Bucky, like, should we step in here? Like, what's going on? And then, you know, Zemo sneaking away. It's like, there's this like tongue-in-cheekness that's still that MCU tone that we've gotten used to with, it can be serious and heavy and action-packed, yet they can still throw in this kind of off-the-cuff irreverence. And that was an example of that whole sequence. And that was like, I mean, every single level of what you expect from an MCU kind of thing was in that sequence, with this kind of confusion of John Walker, like his trying to justify, like, should I take the serum or not kind of idea, or like he didn't have a question, he was going to take it. And once he picked it up, once you saw him pick it up, he was like, yep, I'm taking this. But Dora Milaje, amazing. So anyways, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for hanging out and checking out this MCU Aftershow. If you have any questions for me, if you want to get into it with me, go to the YouTube side of this whole conversation and jump in the comments and throw down a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you think. If you think I'm crazy, if you're like, Sharon Carter's not the power broker, you're nuts, then let me know. If you're like, oh man, maybe you make a good point, Zim, you could tell me that. But also, of course, if you want to support this whole thing, I do have some channel merch. I got the shirt I'm wearing right now, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can see is one of my channel merch. And then I have the 2 robots. If you go in the description of this, I believe I have the link to my merch. I have to double check that. I'll make sure it's there. But it's an Amazon account. I have some t-shirts for sale. Also, of course, there's the Patreon. If you want to support, go to Patreon for as little as you want, $1 upward. So check it out over there. And then, yeah, of course, subscribing wherever you can subscribe to anything, YouTube. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, then you can subscribe there, and maybe Spotify and other places. This podcast shows up in all the podcast places. So just make sure you're subscribed to it. So anytime I drop a video or a podcast, you get it. And then, or actually, the subscription thing works weird. It works different on YouTube. YouTube, even though you're subscribed, you won't see it. You have to hit the notification bell, but don't do that. because I post a lot of things on YouTube that you probably won't care about. So you'll just have to check back in on it. So anyways, that's it for now. Thanks a lot for hanging out again. And till next time, be loving, kind, and patient. Peace.